Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of this newsletter is going to be true to yourself. I've got a good email here from a viewer, and this guy says he comes from money, and I guess when he gets old enough, he's going to inherit his family business, which is probably third or fourth generation here. But part of the problem that he has is that his family doesn't really honor who he is, and so you'll see when it comes like his dating life that he's basically presenting two different people. He's got the one side of him that's successful and well off, and he's got the other side of him. He actually has another car, like just a regular old car, because the women he goes out with, he's afraid that because what he's really worried about is dating someone who's not really into him for him, but for the status and the money and the connections that he has. And what it really boils down to, the core issue here, is he's not really honoring who he is. And so he's wearing this mask in order to gain the acceptance of his family and his peer group, but it's in conflict with his own personal goals and values. So before we get into his email, I got a quote I'd like to read. And it says, "We must honor our purpose and true nature in life. We must honor our calling even when it is in conflict with the values and goals of our family or the expectations of our peer group. It can be easy to gain the acceptance of your family and peer group as long as you do what they want. However, you'll only lose yourself and who you are in the process, thus making yourself a miserable fraud. Suppressive people can only feel good about themselves if they can make those around them conform to their standards and ideals. That is why people react so negatively when you choose a mission or purpose to pursue that is not what they want for you. The only way to shut them up and accept you is to succeed despite their best efforts to destroy and discourage your dreams. Weak people who are living a lie in their own lives will always find a way to discourage others from living and honoring their truth." So let's get into his email. He says, "Dear Coach, my family and I are a typical Southern family. I have the cutest and nicest mother that you can imagine and a good father. Both have their typical Southern flaws, but much of it is smoothed over by their Southern charm. I've run into two big issues in the past few years that seem to be a catalyst for many other issues in my life. I'm typically a forward guy, so the first issue, or at least the source of the issues perhaps more accurately, is that I'm really well off at 26. I have inherited something in the neighborhood of 8 to 9 figures, depending on the markets and all those fun factors that make personal wealth expand and contract." Yeah, I've got a buddy of mine who, I think when he left AOL, he had somewhere around like 40 million. Well, I think it was 2000. It was like right after September 11th. He was managing most of his own money, and he ended up losing half of his net worth in a matter of weeks. And so what he ended up doing after that is he gave half of his money to someone to trade for him, and then the other half of it he kept to do his own investing. And he's since gotten that back. And I remember last time I talked to him, there was a period about 4 or 5 years ago when the real estate market dropped out. Same thing happened again. He really got hammered in the markets, but he's since made that money back. And it's kind of like Donald Trump's The Art of the Comeback. It's people that are successful and know how to make money, even if they go through a period of time where they get totally hammered, it's just a matter of time before they gain it back. He says, "I have all the crap that people seem to wish for." He says, "I have 3 planes, 2 yachts, one for fishing, and the other is more of a floating palace. I think they're all a disgusting waste, but my family seems to think life would be impossible without them. I choose to live in a small 600 square foot condo, single bed and bath with a small living room, because I feel any more than that is a waste. I do drive a Porsche." He says, "I have a passion for racing, and I have been taking lessons over this past year, and it's really the only indulgence I spoil myself with." He says, "I have around 200 employees I'm learning to manage as the older generation of my family slowly moves into retirement. I feel alone, but I have many friends, and I date many women, and I don't have any issues satisfying my sexual needs like it would seem that your general target audience seems to have." He says, I hate even being identified with what I have and own and my money, so I have a separate wardrobe. It's nice, but obscure brand names and a second car. He says, I've got an old white Crown Victoria police car that I use when I'm out on dates. I remember I was hanging out with my dad a few months ago, and he watches the show 2.5 Men, and I guess there was a period of time where Ashton Kutcher's character, because he's obviously a wealthy millionaire, so he has a beat up car, and he ends up hooking up with this girl who really doesn't have any money, because he wants to find somebody that loves him for who he is and not the fact that he's a well off internet entrepreneur. But in essence, what he's doing is he's living a fraud. And of course, the obvious thing is eventually she finds out that the guy that she fell in love with is not really who he was. And obviously it doesn't end well for him. So he says, there's a lot of backstory that I'll spare you from, but I guess it comes down to I just don't trust women with who I am at first, and it takes months, and in a few cases years, to find these things out about me. But I can't help but wonder if I'm going overboard and being untrue to myself by presenting my life to others as something it is not. And I would say, absolutely, that's a fuck up. Like attracts like. And you got to learn to honor your truth and who you are, because what you're doing is you're putting forth a bullshit story, a fraud, if you will, just like Ashton Kutcher's character was doing in the show 2.5 Men. And that's never going to end well. And there's plenty of movies that have been made along that same kind of theme. And obviously it never works out well for the character. He's always, once the girl finds out, she gets pissed that she fell in love with somebody who really wasn't that person. And plus, at the end of the day, it's like you're bending yourself into a pretzel to present one image when you're really something else. And that's a core issue that you have going on, is learning to love and honor and accept your truth and who you are. Probably because you're trying to live up to the standards and the ideals that your family has set forth. He says, I know I'm scared in a way because I saw my grandfather slip away mentally just as he married a young gold digger, and it almost destroyed the family when I was young, and it's been hard for me to open up to women ever since. Kind of sounds like that Anna Nicole story. She married this guy because she was a stripper, and she married this old guy who was I think he was an oil magnate, very, very wealthy guy. And he only lived for a few months or a year or two, and then he passed away and left her, obviously, most of his fortune. And then the family was suing her in court, and obviously she passed away. And last I heard, they were still going after her estate, trying to not give her anything, or the estate anything. He says, the physical appearance of me inside the office and me outside is so different and to such an extreme level that my employees, when they see me out, don't even recognize me, given that I'm always in a button down and dress pants in the office, as sharp as I can dress, because I value my image greatly. But outside the office, my passion lies in nutrition and powerlifting. And without my office dress on and being covered in a pretty dense layer of muscle and heavily tattooed, I can be just me. That's who you need to be, dude. You need to be who you really are, not some fucking fake or phony image, presenting one image to your employees and then you're something completely different. I mean, you're a total fucking fraud, and you're not honoring yourself, and it's obvious that you're not making yourself very happy here. He says, I'm probably the only one in my gym who reads the Wall Street Journal columns, stock reports, and market analysis, and a Harvard case study from time to time in my dungeon-like gym. I'm having a hell of a hard time finding a girl who can fit my two different lives and who I trust with both my heart and knowledge of my family. To make things exponentially more difficult, I tend to date mostly black women, and have given the traditional Southern view on that. It's not hard to imagine why the family never meets who I date. He says, I'm torn between who I was born as and the responsibility of all the employees I will one day manage, and the life I live outside work. Maybe you could offer some insights. Yeah, just like I was saying earlier, you're making yourself miserable because you're not living your truth. You're not honoring who you really are. You're, in essence, presenting this perfect image to your parents and your family and your employees because it's what you think your family wants in order to accept you. He says, sorry for the length and likely the typos. He says, but I've been under a lot of pressure recently, and I was just told last week that I need to put forth a plan to, at a minimum, triple revenue over the next decade with a target of 4 to 5 times growth, but they won't even let me change the simplest of issues with due process, such as implementing an HR department to it's insane. He says, I think they want me to just implement changes and ask for forgiveness later and say fuck it to teamwork, but I'm under the school of thought that big change in growth numbers like those come from teamwork and transparency. He says, the old Vanguard has challenged my every step of the way as I try to make the employees have a say in the process of change and a say in how we move forward. People want to feel like they're a part of something. It's like I was sharing the other day in the video I did regarding what Bill Parcells said in his Hall of Fame speech. It's like just like on a team, your employees, they deserve a chance to win. They want to feel like their efforts contribute to the good of the whole. Everybody wants to feel like they're a part of something. And if you have a culture in your company where it feels like the employees feel like it's like their contributions don't seem to matter, they're just like another number, they come in and they do their job and leave. Eventually, you're really good people, you're superstars, they're going to leave and they're going to go work somewhere else because they don't feel like their contributions matter. It's like good people don't need to be managed. Good people need leadership. He says, we've never done a performance review, but I'm supposed to increase efficiency, but at the moment I offer a review as a gauge to find areas we need to improve in, and I'm called out for inciting employee rebellion through motivating a union. He says, I'm lost in considering saying fuck it and leaving and to start my own company just so I don't have to deal with this shit, but I hate giving up. Maybe you see something like an opportunity that I don't. Any insights or thoughts? Well, if I was doing a phone session with you, the first thing that I would focus on is finding out who you really are, what you feel like you're put on this earth to do. Because it's certainly from the only way you're going to be able to do what you want to do in your family's business is to conform to what they want and basically become a robot. And you're obviously at this point, at 26, after working in your family business for quite some time, just like your family doesn't want to hear your contributions, obviously your employees are probably feeling the same way. And if you can't make any changes and you can't get the right people on your team to feel like they're a part of something, all your really great people are going to eventually leave and go work somewhere else because they're just simply not going to feel fulfilled. And what happens in those kinds of environments, because I've run companies like that in the past when I was younger and didn't know better, is that eventually when people realize that you're not willing to listen, you're not open to new things, they just give up. And they just do just enough to not get fired or to not stand out or to not get in the way or to really not get noticed. But my question to you would be, it's like you've got to do something for a living that you really love and you really have a passion for. And it doesn't sound like you really have a passion for this business. What it sounds like is you're just trying to please your family and your parents so that you'll gain their acceptance. And all you're doing is making yourself miserable in the process. I mean, look at all the things that you're doing. You've got a piece of shit car. You got a beater that you drive around to present some image as a broke guy when you're really not that. And you're dating women that your family, from what you said, is not going to accept. It's like the best thing that you can do is to figure out what it is that you really want to do, the kind of thing that you feel like you're put on this earth to do, the kind of thing that gives you goosebumps. And it usually takes, when I do phone sessions with people, about a half hour to drill down to at the core of who you really are and what it is that you want. Because right now, as it stands from what you shared with me, is that you're trying to live your life according to other people's expectations, and you're bending yourself in a pretzel to try to please your parents and your family, and even despite your best efforts, they're still not accepting of what you're doing, and all you're doing is making yourself miserable and unhappy in the process. You have to get to a place where day in and day out, when you wake up in the morning, you feel like you're contributing to something that really is emotionally compelling to you, that you're building something that's exciting for you. Whether that means starting your own business or going and working for another company that has the kind of culture that you'd really like to be a part of, obviously that remains to be seen. But the only way you're going to be really happy is if you do something that you really love for a living, something that's really exciting and really emotionally compelling to you. Being successful in business and making money is all about adding value through a useful product or a useful service. And it's just like Maya Angelou said. She said, don't chase money. Instead, do what you love and get to the point where you do it so well that other people can't take their eyes off of you. And that's what you really need to focus on, is doing something and creating a life and a lifestyle that honors your truth. Because what happens is since you can't really be yourself, that's the vibe that you're putting out into the world. And so you're putting out a vibe that's bullshit. You're putting out a vibe that's a fraud. And so naturally you're going to attract women who are, in essence, are going to get involved with you when their interest is a fraud, and you're finding that out later. And that's part of the problem. If you're living a fraud, you're going to attract women that are a fraud. Like attracts like. That is a universal principle. So you have to get to a place where your life and your lifestyle honors who you are. It honors your truth. It honors your calling. It honors your purpose and your mission in life. And when you can be 100% congruent with how you're living your life, then you can attract the same kind of like-minded people and like-minded women into your life to date. And then once you do that, you'll naturally meet women that maybe come from a similar background and they have similar goals, similar values. Maybe they came from the same type of family that you did. Maybe they came from money as well, so they can totally relate and understand who you are. But until you stop living this fraudulent life that you're living, you're not going to attract those kind of people. You're going to keep attracting people that are basically, they're a fraud in essence. And that's what your experience has been from what you've shared here from the women that you're dating. So if you'd like to get my help with on this particular idea, you got to figure out your purpose, what your goals are, your true mission, your true calling in life, go to my website, click the products tab, which will be at the top of your screen, and follow the instructions for booking a paid phone session. And I will talk to you soon.